The often overlooked Avenger finally got a project all his own, which was also overlooked. Listen, it wasn't the fault of the series, but Hawkeye was in a really bad set of circumstances. This show came out in November 2021, a full 2 years after Endgame, when people were just starting to get tired of Marvel. Beyond that, it was released right at the same time as No Way Home, which took a lot of its thunder and made people favor much more multiversal scale storytelling, especially in the multiversal saga, as opposed to the more street-level stories like Hawkeye. That being said, I really like this series. Hawkeye is a show that doesn't really take itself too seriously, while simultaneously offering a good story, interesting characters, and enjoyable moments, and actually executing the Christmas element pretty successfully. The main theme of this series is a mix of sacrifice and putting your past behind you. We see the theme of sacrifice pretty clearly throughout the series, with Hawkeye not being able to get over Natasha's sacrifice, Maya's actions being founded on the sacrifice of her parents, and even Kate's mom, who sacrificed her morals for her daughter so she could live a better life. In terms of putting your past behind you, this show nails it as well, most evidently with Hawkeye, whose whole arc in this series is putting his past as the Ronin behind him and facing the consequences of that past. Again, Maya has to move on from her past and move forward, and finally Kate's mom has to move on from her husband's life of crime with the mafia. The best thing about the show for me is that it's fun. The show isn't really taking itself too seriously, it's relatively low stakes, and I can just have a really good time watching it. It's also not making a fool of itself. You can still get sucked into the character drama, but it's still having fun. Hawkeye's arc is both accepting the fact that he is Hawkeye and moving on from being Ronin at the same time. Obviously, he was drawn into the story because of the old gear Ronin was being sold, but Kate gets him to accept his role in people's minds as Hawkeye, because that's who he is, especially to a lot of people like Kate. Speaking of Kate, she is experiencing a classic coming-of-age story where she has to learn to mature and take responsibility. Having her be a rich kid really plays well into this arc. In the beginning of the show, she acts like she's invincible, and this recklessness is what puts a lot of people in danger. She has to learn to be mature and take responsibility for her actions, and that for those of others, which Hawkeye helps her do, by making her realize that her mistakes caused him to potentially miss out on spending time with his family. Pizza Dog is best boy. I really like how the random henchmen in the show have personalities. It's such a small touch, but it really adds to the experience. Kind of rooting for these guys, honestly. Finally, I'm a little disappointed with how they handled Kingpin in the show. Having him show up only to be taken out by Kate, of all people, in the span of one episode is doing him a disservice, especially after the masterpiece that is Peak Devil. That being said, he served his purpose in the context of this show quite well. The show is a whole bunch of fun with a solid action and good characters, so A tier.